The big orcas used to be called the transient orcas. They're now called big orcas after
Mhm.
Dr. Michael Big.
He also
Um,
has a Star Wars character named after him. I'm kidding, I'm
maybe not.
kidding.
Maybe not.
I'm kidding.
Maybe
That's
not.
that's for our that's for our nerds in the crowd.
Uh, my God, is that going to be this? Is that the start of the podcast?
It might be.
Oh, I think it is.
Hi, welcome to Whale Talk.
Well,
Yeah, this is
welcome
what
on
we
in.
do.
Okay, enjoy the intro.
We're nerds.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Whale Talk podcast. Joining me is your host, Kavone, and also joining you. Did I say joining me?
Yeah, you
Also,
did.
also joining you is you, GeoFits4, also the host.
Hi. Hi, I guess apparently
Uh,
I'm the third host today.
Apparently,
Or maybe I'm the fourth.
I introduced that so weird. Like, you can tell I don't rehearse introducing people. You know, we're keeping it in because we're all about those mistakes. It makes it seem a little bit Wow, there we are. That's the intro already. Okay, so welcome back to the podcast. So we've had some discussions, and we're gonna be. So you're gonna be getting more from the podcast going forward. Maybe not this month, for the month of September or August. I is this August podcast or September's podcast? It's September's.
Yeah, it's September.
It's September's, recorded on the 20th of August and featuring all the news from August. It's September. Yeah. It does feel like mid-autumn already. So
I
we are
wish it
going
felt like that in Florida.
Florida, where your summer starts in February and ends in November.
Thereabouts, yeah.
So, uh, we always like to start a little bit light-hearted and educate people quite a bit on some important 3 facts that honestly I want to say we came up with that I came up with on the fly when I was trying to write some notes for this podcast. And these are the ones that I discovered that maybe people would find interesting and informative. These are called whale facts. So, did you know that if society was founded by whales, we would probably have a film called The Humpback of Notre Dame? Okay, I heard the giggle, and I felt the groan from our audience.
I intentionally did not read these beforehand. I skipped this section of the notes.
The Okay, it wasn't a bad one, this one. Did you know that despite a commonly held belief, quails are not closely related to whales?
That
Well,
is unfortunate.
I read that in reverse, but it still works. It's weird.
Quail are pretty tasty. Quail are tasty, though.
Yeah.
At least I've heard. I don't know that I've ever had quail.
It's weird because like whale sounds almost like mail, like when you mail something to someone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but whales don't have postmen, I don't think. By the way, that's not the third fact. Third fact is actually that whales are not known to listen to podcasts.
But we are looking to fund studies into this topic.
Yeah. So, fun fact, and I bet no one realizes this. there's actually a pun in the name of this podcast. It's, I want to say it's not by accident. Kind of was. Kind of was by accident. But, news time?
Yeah, let's
So we
let's get
just
into the news.
swiftly move on.
Yeah, we have some good news this month, though.
Oh
Well, some
yeah.
good news and some bad news, but we have some good.
Oh
Should say
yeah.
we have
We've
some
got
good news
We've got
articles.
something really sad later. Um. Okay. Do we wanna start from the top? We've got some shorter stuff later on, but I think we want to start from the top, the bigger stuff.
Yeah, I think that works well.
Okay. Wait. Can we start with something that's good news? Actually.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start with our fourth story, I think. So this is about so whales and dolphins have been found hanging out together, and I found this on a website called The Conservation, and this is a new study in Australia suggesting that whales and dolphins regularly hang out together. And this is usually the dolphins that will initiate, and they'll touch the whales, they'll bow ride with the whales, and the whales will typically respond, making very clear response. Aggression within these interactions is very rare, and occasionally they can be for coordinated feeding. So they found that at least 1/3 of the interactions between humpback whales and dolphins are social. So they're making friends basically. They also actively seek each other out for these social interactions. Both types of animals, dolphins and whales, are considered emotionally complex animals. I think you found something else related to this the other day, didn't you?
Yeah, so it was actually really funny because I came to it completely independently. I don't remember exactly what I was reading about or the chain of events to get there, but was going through the normal rabbit hole of Wikipedia, and I ended up finding an interesting little. It was just one sentence in an article, so I went to find the news article and then dug deeper. And I found this paper was about some observations that were made around the Azores in 2011 about a spinally deformed bottlenose dolphin that was seen with a group of sperm whales. And well, it's not uncommon or unheard of for particularly bottlenose dolphins to mix into other species. And actually, I think I was reading about that the other day with Gulf of Mexico whales and dolphins because they'll often be in mixed schools with melon-headed whales as well. So it's not uncommon for bottlenose dolphins to get into these groups. But this was the first time there had ever been an observation of sperm whales tolerating an interspecies, mix like that.
Yeah, because sperm whales are quite often they're quite often like the upper class whales where
Hmm.
they don't really associate too much with anything else. So
Yep.
so this kind of brings up the topic of empathy within whales and dolphins, and this is going to be a common theme today. I think we've got
Hmm.
quite a lot of topics that touch upon this. Um, so I actually want to mention that we got a question. So typically we do our Q&A at the end of the podcast, but I thought it made more sense to actually include this question in this news article because this was specifically about this kind of thing, and so I decided to try and answer this. And after I started trying to answer this, that's when this study about the humpbacks and the dolphins came out. And what you found actually is is very interesting because it kind of touches upon this as well. So the question is, are there any unexpected interspecies relationships that orcas are known to have that you were surprised to learn about? Think along the lines of an animal that might prey on that someone might not expect. Wording.
An
Uh,
animal that the orcas
yeah,
might prey on. Yeah.
or maybe a symbiotic relationship with a creature that most folks might not have heard about. And this was asked by Dank. So so I think this is before you started being a host on the podcast, uh, where I actually covered a story in the very first episode about Dow's porpoises and northern resident orcas.
Mhm.
And this is actually something I was observed kind of recently as well, with Pacific white-sided dolphins and the northern resident orcas as well, where these two species of cetacean will actually interact and swim with the northern resident orcas, and orcas are an apex predator. However, because there's such a difference between northern residents and big orcas, where the big orcas would predate upon the porpoises and dolphins, but the northern residents only eat fish, it was thought that the Dow's porpoises were grouping with the northern residents because the big orcas will not go near resident orcas. They just steer away. And my theory on why they do this is because big orcas are ambush predators. They are very quiet. Resident orcas are very noisy. So I think they probably avoid residents because that will give them away.
Yeah.
And we
That
also
makes sense.
covered.
And from this the observation with the sperm whales, predator avoidance on the part of the bottlenose dolphin was called out as a possible factor, though they also mentioned that there's a scarcity of predators that would prey on a dolphin in those waters, as there's not like orcas aren't there very often, and there's not many large shark species. So there's definitely and predator avoidance like that makes a lot of sense, for the way you've framed it there.
Yeah. Another example I covered a couple podcasts ago was actually Icelandic orcas sort of adopting pilot whale calves. Now, no one really knows why this happens.
Hmm.
There was also a southern resident orca named Luna who interacted with people when he got lost, and like massively interacted with people. Unfortunately, this did result in his untimely demise. He was
Hmm.
hit by a boat propeller at the age of 6. Um, Another example that I have is an orca known as Old Tom, who actually used to work with whalers, like way back, where Old Tom and the pod he was part of would find the whales, come back to the whalers would get on their ship, follow the orcas, and the orcas would lead them to the whales. And then the whalers would allow the orcas to eat the tongue and lips of the whales that they caught.
Hmm.
And one other instance I found was not specifically orcas, but in South America. Can't remember where. I This is something I don't have like a concrete like when, where, or how, but I do remember seeing something about dolphins helping fishermen on the beaches, not fishermen in the water, but fishermen that like have nets in their hands on the beaches. These dolphins were helping the fishermen actually catch fish, and then the fishermen would hand a few of them to the dolphins. So did see about
And
that.
completely an anecdotal thing, but I actually saw a video today of someone had dropped their sunglasses in the water and they're on a boat, and this dolphin comes up, balancing the sunglasses on its nose and holds it out for the
Oh my
person
god,
to take them
that's
back.
funny.
Yeah.
I've seen a video of a beluga whale grab a GoPro that fell in the water whilst the
Oh,
GoPro
I've
was
seen that
live.
one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I've seen that one. Oh, what something I wanted to call out too when you were talking about the Icelandic orcas with the pilot whale calves. So that was something else, that was pointed out with this dolphin and the sperm whales was they called it displaced alloparental care, and that's basically the alloparental being, when you have adults of a family unit watching, others, the calves of others, or even of non, family members, and so it could have been like a factor could have been the one adult female that was always seen with with the group looking at this dolphin and going, oh, that's just Greg. It's just someone else's calf. I don't recognize him, but he's Greg. And to that point too, they observed the dolphin regularly swimming with the calves when the group was on the move.
So the pilot whales, what one theory that they have is that the orcas are actually using the pilot whale calves to help them hunt as
Hmm.
like extra bodies when they're trying to bait ball.
Yeah. Oh, and they're fish eaters.
Yeah,
Then yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
I mean some of them are, not all of them.
Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
I
mean
mean,
that particular group.
predation is also a potential theory.
I mean, if you wanted to take the very cynical, route of they're raising it, that it's like ranching, that would be the very cynical. So I think it would be interesting
Uh,
to see is that as these pilot whales grow up, if they just continue to be a part of the pod, or if they leave, or if something happens to them.
they typically don't remain part of that pod for long because
Hmm.
the pod is
Yeah.
often seen frequently after not base. Basically, they're seen without the calf.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on about what some orcas do with humpback whale calves, which is absolutely savage.
Hmm.
Actually, you guys probably want to hear about that. So this was documented by I can't remember the name of the series, but it was with David Attenborough. Um, and it's a video of like a pod of three orcas, and they go after this. But by the way, three orcas, and they go after this humpback whale mother and calf, and the humpback whale mother is joined by a large male humpback whale. And you're thinking, well, that's it. The orcas are not getting their snack, because that's 3 on 3. And like when the orcas was a juvenile as well. What the orcas did was so ingenious that it's kind of scary how intelligent they are. So what they did was that they made it seem as if they had left. They went radio silent. They stayed out of vision, so that they waited until the male submerged. The male
Well,
humpback
dive.
whale. Yeah.
Hmm.
Then they came in, swooped in one single action, knocked the calf off the back of the mother, and started swimming away with the calf following them. And what they would do
Mm.
is that they would swim underneath the calf because that's what
Mhm.
the calf's mother would do to keep it
Yeah.
safe. And the calf, not knowing any better, would swim with the orcas.
Yeah, it's just instinct. Hmm.
Yeah. And I'm like, if if that were me, if I were the orca, I would not come up with that solution. I'm like, that intelligence is beyond me.
Mhm. I mean, I think that shows. Well, it definitely shows the application of observation skills.
Oh, for sure. Um, this actually kind of leads into one of our next news stories, news story number 3. Um, is that orcas have been discovered hunting in coordinated pairs. Now, I don't think this is absolutely new information. Um, so this was posted by the Smithsonian magazine, and it's a new study in Norway reveals coordinated hunting of herring between two orcas. So it is most common in pairs of males. Usually the pairs are one larger and one smaller orca. The smaller orca will swim behind the herring, blocking their exit, while the larger one will use his tail flukes to slap the fish. And typically these orcas that do this will have preferred partners that they will do this with. So the orcas that hunt herring will slap the herring with their tails. Now, like one big slap, if there's a lot of fish there and they've got nowhere to go, you get more fish. So this is why the small orca is there blocking them so that they have nowhere to go. Now, what made this really interesting to me is that I was actually watching whilst I was on holiday from work. I actually watched a lecture by the Whale Museum. Well, a lecture at the Whale Museum. It was an online lecture, and it was by the Centre for Whale Research's Michael Weiss. And he suggested that the southern residents may also hunt in pairs, which Norwegian orcas, southern residents, there is no overlap there. So they both developed these like on their own. Now, the reason why I wanted to point this out is because the way that they discovered this through drone-based observation, and we are getting so much more knowledge, so much more research on what whales and dolphins do from drone-based observations. Heck, even today, I saw a video of these scientists that had dropped a suction cup like camera thing onto a humpback whale from a drone, and the camera actually had a video of the humpback whale breaching whilst the camera stuck to the humpback whale. And I thought that was really cool. But
Yeah,
we
yeah, that is
we
really cool.
so the Center for Whale Research discovered allokelping due to drone footage as well, and uh, drones are becoming so big in the field of marine biology, particularly with
Mhm.
whales and dolphins. And I think it's
Yeah.
great. I think it's
Mhm.
great because it's really non-intrusive as well.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of insight I got was in reading the paper about the sperm whales and the dolphin, was also reading about what their restrictions, were for their observations. And it was basically, like they described like the kind of boat they had. They could have, they could have people in the boat. They could only have one person in the water. They couldn't approach. If there were any other, or they couldn't approach within, I think it was 50 meters. If there was another boat in the area, because there's a lot of ecotourism. There's only one boat allowed to encounter them at a time, so you have to stay even further back. So it's like there's all sorts of limitations in a lot of these places and what you can even do. And then also, what are you affecting in their behavior by being in the water or having a boat close? Whereas, hopefully, a drone, other than the sound and maybe them seeing that weird bird flying up there, hopefully would be less intrusive, overall.
Well, the sound being in the air rather than in the waters would be a lot less intrusive.
Hmm.
The thing with drones as well is that when you're on a boat, you have a very planar view. Like you've got a sea level view, you only see stuff that's above the water. if you're lucky and it's a very clear day, you see stuff that's like really like close to you on the boat, but nothing more than that. With a
Mhm.
drone, you've got a completely different plane of view. Now, a drone will not see more than like 5 or 6 meters underwater, so you won't see anything that's like that deep. But you will see quite a lot of interactions, and a lot of orca hunts have actually been documented through drones this way as well. So I like the use of drones here because I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything else that we could really use to learn more about them, because the only other way to learn more about them is to do more like deeper sea research. But how are you going to do that? The water's
Yeah.
murky.
Hmm. Well, it's also like, how are you going to observe a humpback whale diving, down at
Exactly.
its and like active, what it's actively doing in its hunt or as it's going, going down, down to the depths. Like,
Yeah.
sure, we have
You
vehicles that can go that depth, but you know,
you
even
have
a
to be
lot
in the
of
right place, right time for that.
yeah, and those take hours, so you could be in the wrong position. It's like, or you'd have to be so lucky to be like down, that deep in a submersible and have a humpback whale basically dive down right on top of you. Now, on the other side of it, you also might be incredibly unlucky if the humpback whale hits you. But
So I guess they could stick cameras on them, but that at that
I
point that's intrusive, and I don't like that
yeah,
kind of research.
yeah, and I do remember seeing a video, and I feel like that this was like during school, so childhood ages, but where it was something like that, where it was if it wasn't a humpback whale, it was some other deep diving whale, where it was basically stick a dart into the side of the whale, and then there was like a tether and a little pod with a camera in it that hung on to it as it dove down. And I remember seeing that video as a kid, but like now thinking about it and go, maybe that's not the best thing for us to be doing to these whales.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move on to our next news story. It's gonna be news story 1 and 2 on the document. Because they can't. These two stories are slightly linked. Um, so the first news story of these two is that there has been a recent increase in strandings of whales and dolphins in Ireland and Scotland, specifically beaked whales. Um, so two Trews beaked whales stranded in Ireland, having been filmed just before they were stranded. And so the fact that they were filmed just before does give a potential insight into pre-stranding behavior. Maybe we might learn something about why this happens. And now, unfortunately, this was a mother and calf, and the mother unfortunately did not make it. And while the calf was freed, it is likely that the calf was still maternally dependent. The calf was also found to have passed away a few days later. Now, the suggestions um, that have been offered are mostly around potential acoustic trauma. And this is going to be something that we would probably touch upon in the next news article, because it is also about strandings. Um, Now, in addition to this, two northern bottlenose whales. Actually, I didn't say two. Northern bottlenose whales stranded in Orkney, Scotland, at the same time as these Trews beaked whales. And this was followed 2 weeks later by a pod of 23 pilot whales. Now, pilot whales, we we don't know why they strand. They seem to strand a lot. Uh, my theories are one strand, and they'll all strand out of sympathy. In that, I think that their social bonds are such that like it's one for all and all for one.
Hmm.
Now we have Zarf in chat suggesting potential military activity. This could be possible. The suggestion of oil acoustic trauma that could also be related to sonar with military activity, or even like more military training. Um, you have anything about this, Stu, or shall I move on to the next story?
Um,
Because the
well,
next story
I
is
had
very
actually,
similar.
I had mentioned to you, I think it was yesterday, a video I had watched. That it's not out on YouTube yet, but maybe it might be something to talk about next month. But it was underwater acoustic. Trying to think of what attenuation I think is the right word for it, but basically minimizing the effects on underwater acoustic sounds on
Oh,
local wildlife.
yeah, you did mention that to me. That's I have to
Because
look that up. That's clever what you said.
yeah, yeah. So I'll send you that video, and then maybe we can also add it in the comments once the video comes out here. But there's the San Francisco. I don't remember exactly the name of the government agency, but they, along with the civilian engineering firms that they worked with on a new bridge in San Francisco Bay, as a part of that, they developed these underwater, acoustic, processes to try and diminish the sounds and effects of, especially like pile drivers in particular.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of neat underwater acoustic stuff that goes on with that.
So from what I understand, from what I read, now correct me if I read this wrong. What they're planning to do is like have things that make bubbles
Yeah, so
that'll
it's
disrupt the sound
it's
waves.
yeah, the simple science of it is that when you have all of these, bubbles disrupting the water, it blocks and deflects sound waves. So, and especially high frequency sounds in particular. And apparently in this study there's all sorts of like, graphs and stuff that they did to measure, the differences in, decibels of frequencies, and frequency responses and all of that. And, testing all sorts of different, you know, configurations of it. And they can do stuff as simple even as like, if like a normal bubbler isn't, practical, they could put like basically a sleeve around the pile and pump bubbles into it and still have the same kind of insulating, sound effect. It was really, really interesting stuff, but a lot of
I'd
heavy science in there too.
I'd be interested to see if that starts getting applied in places, or like, or whether
Mhm.
that goes any further.
Yeah, well, because it was only 2020 that they released that. So this is definitely, practices that are starting to come into play in construction now. Um, the video I watched, they did point out a couple of other interesting, um, uses for it. Like for example, in a tidal area, if you have salt water that's pushing up into a freshwater area, you can use the bubblers to help keep the water separate because it's a harder barrier, for it to cross and mix. They can also use it to try and keep like oil, like an oil spill, uh, being able to spread, especially in areas where stuff like booms, like floating booms, aren't practical. So there's definitely a lot of interesting applications that go beyond just construction, to that technology. But it's also very complex, very expensive. You have to have a lot of compressors and all of the hardware and all of that. But it's like I
It
said, it was really interesting to, just the little taste I got, and now I want to dig in more.
See, if it's used for things like oil spills, like this is something that can just be deployed and then recovered after.
Hmm.
So our next news story is similar in a sense. So I don't know if anyone remembers that massive earthquake at the end of July. It was a magnitude 8.8 earthquake that happened off the coast of Russia, uh, in the Pacific Ocean,
Hmm.
and it triggered tsunami warnings in quite a lot of countries. Now, these tsunamis did not actually end up being that big. Um, Now it came to light that four sperm whales stranded in Japan as a result of the Russian earthquake. Now this this we have to take with a pinch of salt because what I found is that the validity of these claims that these sperm whales stranded is very much in question. There's claims that the photos and videos that they showed were of a 2021 stranding, I believe. So the validity is taken with a pinch of salt. But this got me researching, and I had a discussion with my mum about this, and this kind of triggered me to really properly research this topic and found out that there's actually not a real answer. And my question that I was trying to answer was: is there a correlation between earthquakes or other seismic activities or things like tsunamis? Is there a correlation between those and strandings? And the evidence is very unclear either way on whether earthquakes and tsunamis actually cause an increase in strandings. Now, I found two separate articles. One that was saying that it didn't affect it. I think this was in the Pacific Northwest, and there was an article that was suggesting that it did affect it, and this was located in several other places in the world. And from from this conflict of views, I deduced that perhaps this does not. Perhaps this means that the strandings are not directly caused by the seismic event, but that it could be based on the ecosystem. It could be that predators will go towards species that will go closer to like an earthquake or something. And but there are,
And I, th-
yeah, go ahead.
I, I think just like with many things, this may just be a case of where you may not be able to pinpoint earthquake as direct cause, but you may not be able to rule it out as being contribute as a contributing factor. Like
Yeah,
there's so many other variables into a stranding. Like when we talk about this group of sperm whales, well, were any of them sick? Were they old? Were they young? Were there any injuries? Was there's I feel like there's
it's
so many other variables that would be really honestly hard to capture, even in a study, to be able to definitively go, okay, yep, it was the earthquake.
it's very much possible that one's stranded because it's ill, and then the other three just happen to strand with that one.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well, yeah, and like you
if it
said with the
happens
pilot
in
whales,
pilot whales, yeah.
yeah, follow the leader.
So now that there are actually some ways that this could affect cetaceans. Now cetaceans have a weak sense of geomagnetism, as far as I know, where they can use the geomagnetic they can use the magnetic field of the Earth to be able to navigate. and seismic activity will interfere with this, and it may disorientate them, may lead them to go to places that they don't know. They might not realize that they're going into the
Mhm.
shore. Um,
It
but
makes it makes me think about the often asked theoretical question: what would happen when the Earth's poles swap? Especially because there are a number of species that are geomagnetically sensitive, like bats, I believe, are one example.
I
That
think
they
birds must be as well.
Yeah, and some birds, so there are species that are able to detect that and how that would affect them. And think about that with orcas. Would our Alaskan orcas get confused and move to Australia?
I think that's an extreme example, but like migratory whales, whales might get lost. Actually, like they won't go in the
Mhm.
wrong place, but they might actually get lost on how to find the route because, like, you're in the middle of the sea. How do you know where's what?
And I mean, and who knows how they actually perceive it, but it could just be as little as just like, I got a feeling. I'm using the copyrighted word, and I just feel that this is the right place, that I'm supposed to take a right. You know, it could be as simple as that kind of perception of just a feeling of a place.
Zarf has a very good point in chat. I think we've all got a problem when the poles reverse.
I don't remember what the answer to that was, but you know, I'm sure someone will freak out.
I think a lot of people. So, in regards to these seismic effects, um, from what I found in my research of this, is that the most likely cause, if there was a correlation, the most likely cause would be the sound caused by earthquakes or volcanoes. That would potentially even deafen cetaceans.
And it's certainly also the potential for it to be a concussive wave as well.
Oh yeah. Uh, right. Well, okay. So we're gonna go into news story 5 'cause we've got a few quicker ones here now. Um, okay. So our next news story is about swimmers being approached by an injured dolphin in Dorset, United Kingdom. Now, this is a video that was posted by the Telegraph. And so the public are being warned to stay away from the dolphin. And the only reason why I'm including this article is to explain why you should not touch wild cetaceans. Now, a lot of people would assume that you don't touch wild cetaceans because of what we might be able to catch from them. And while this is potentially a concern, it's much more dangerous towards the whale or dolphin than it is towards you because we have bacteria on our hands, on our bodies, that is way worse for them than what they can give to us. So you should never ever touch a wild whale or dolphin because you could be causing them harm even if you don't mean to. So this is why you should, if possible, stay away from them in the water. You also don't want to. You also don't want to ever like interrupt them or get in the way. Uh, when like whale watching vessels or research vessels approach orcas, they will always try and avoid approaching them from the front. Um, or from behind. The interactions are always going to be side on because you're swimming with them. You're not swimming towards them. You're not. I mean, boating. You're not swimming towards them. You're not like chasing them. You're swimming alongside them. and that's how it should be. Because then they don't feel pressured, they don't feel threatened or anything. I think Florida have something about manatees. I think Geo might be dying to talk about.
Yeah. Well, um, when I was a kid, it was okay to touch manatees. Um, Now I believe it's against the law to touch a manatee. Now, obviously, a manatee could still swim up to you and go nom 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 with its big old mouth. But I believe it's now illegal for you to touch a manatee, and I believe to the point where it's considered harassment of an animal, and I believe is a felony, which felonies are minimum 1 year prison time. So, the state does take harassment of manatees very seriously.
I should also that reminds me, I should also clarify that it is actually in the UK illegal to swim with dolphins. I did look this up. It is actually illegal to swim with dolphins. Now, if a dolphin comes up to you and swims with you, not much you can do.
Mhm.
But it is if you are actively going to swim those dolphins, you can't do that.
Yeah, and that's generally the way what we follow with the manatees too, is like, if the manatee comes up to you, take you cool, enjoy the view. You have a big old sea cow right there. But otherwise, give them their space, let them do their thing. They're at the salad buffet.
See, this is what happened. This is what happened when I was in the San Juan Islands, and there was this one day where um like we were with you because we like and we turned off our engines because they slowed down and we were kind of getting closer, so we turned off our engines because they kind of stopped going forwards and like they were socializing, and then they decided to double back, and we were there. So like we were just floating in the water, and they just surrounded the boat and like were just playing all around the boat. And
Mhm.
and I remember the naturalists on the boat were like, "Well, we can't go anywhere. Guess we
We're
just have to
stuck.
enjoy the view."
Yeah, I love that.
If this 3.5 trip ends up being 5.5 hours, then I
Well,
guess you guys got your money's worth.
I mean, the flip side of that is, if the crew works on tips, that tip just went way up.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It actually it really did. I tipped quite
Mhm.
well.
Oh, yeah.
That was like a
Yeah, I mean, and
$20
it's
tip.
and it's the same, like, it's the same in with the chart. Like, the better your day is, the better people are gonna tip.
Yeah. So we've got a bit more of bit more of a somber news article here now. Um, Also, by the way, like a lot of these news articles that I found for this month was found in the last like 2 or 3 days, which kind of annoyed me because like I had everything written out and then like news, and even the pre-recorded segment of Orca Watch, I pre-recorded it yesterday, and then I got the thing of southern residents being spotted. I'm like, I
You little
pre-recorded
rascals.
that, yeah. Uh, so I will explain that before we actually go into that segment. Um,
So can we unofficially nickname the Southern residents the Little Rascals?
well, every podcast that I watch that includes a new segment, without fail, something drops the very day after they upload.
Mhm. Oh, always.
Yeah, it's just the way things are.
Mhm.
So okay, so this news article is about the vaquita. So a new report from the Commission for Environmental Cooperation which is a cooperation between the United States and Mexico, has judged Mexico as failing to enforce laws designed to protect the critically endangered vaquita, which is the smallest species of porpoise in the world. The vaquita is also one of the most endangered animal species in the world, with roughly 10 individuals left. Now, the big threats towards vaquitas is fishing, and they still use big nets that will catch vaquitas as bycatch, whilst they're fishing for another fish species that's also endangered. So this finding is basically judging that Mexico's failures in enforcing the new laws. There are new laws that they have made laws, but they're not enforcing them strictly enough, and it's looking very unlikely that the vaquita will actually recover. And it's sad to think that within the next 5 years we may see the second cetacean species in human history go extinct entirely due to human actions. The first being the Yangtze River dolphin. Now that being said, it is far from the only critically endangered whale dolphin species. There's several populations of orcas that are critically endangered, like the Iberian orcas off the coast of Spain. The ones that are known for sinking boats, they are also critically endangered, and they're coming under fire from the public, who have started throwing firecrackers into the water to deter them. There's also rice as well, which we're going to cover later on. There's also northern right whale, which is there's only about 300 of them left. There is also the Yangtze finless porpoise, which could be on the brink of extinction sooner rather than later as well. And yeah, so this is not a case of there's not enough laws to protect them. It's that it's not being enforced enough, essentially. And our last news article is actually a very quick one. That there is a new exhibit opening in Washington in the Orca Network's Langley Whale Center. Now, we do use the Orca Network for some of our orca sightings, by the way. Orca Watch. We use quite a bit of that information, and this is an exhibit dedicated entirely to Tokite, who was a southern resident orca who spent more than 50 years in captivity, and she was due to be not released, but retired to a sea pen in the San Juan Islands last year. But unfortunately, she passed away before that could happen. So they mentioned in this article that she brought so many people together that liked orcas. So many people came together, like to fight, basically to fight her battle, like to fight for her cause to be re-released into the wild. And so there's an entire exhibit that's going to be about her. So we're actually going to go to a pre-recorded segment here. We're going to go to Orca Watch. Now, I have to preface this by saying that there is a mistake in Orca Watch. Because in Orca Watch, I say that there have been no sightings of southern residents in August. Like, 2 hours before we're recording this, by the way, I get an email from the from the Southern residents. Imagine getting an email from the Southern residents. This is an email from the Centre for Whale Research about their encounter number 52, where they actually went to the outer coast and they found members of J, K, and L pod on the 17th of August. So I'm gonna play that pre-recorded segment now. Once we get back to you, I think we're gonna have something to discuss because Orca Watch is a little bit longer this month because there was some sad news, and I think this is gonna lead on to a discussion.
Yep. Yeah, we should have a nice little science topic to follow it up with.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the pre-recorded Orca Watch for this month. So I've decided I'm going to include Orca of the Month within Orca Watch itself. I think that makes more sense because we'll keep everything more or less Orca related within Orca Watch. So our Orca of the Month for the month of September is actually J62, who does not actually have a common name yet, just known as J62. And the reason for this is that J62 is roughly a 9-month-old female, first spotted on the 31st of December. She's part of JPod and she is a southern resident. Now, she was actually initially mistaken with another calf, J61, who had been born a week prior. Now, unfortunately, J61 did pass away quite soon after that, and that kind of made headlines because J61's mother, Talika, was famous several years ago for carrying a dead calf in apparent mourning. And this happened again this year, at the start of this year, with J61. Now, with all this going on, J62 was actually almost kind of forgotten about by the community. We weren't really talking too much about J62 at that point. And it was only in March that we started to realize that, like, while we were reeling from J61 and L128's passing, L128 passed away in October last year, who is actually the calf of our adopted orca, L90 Balena. And but we then realized that J62, hang on, she's actually thriving, and we knew that she was a she by then because she was actually discovered to be a female in March. Now, orca calves do not have a very high survival rate. In fact, they've got a 1 in 5 chance for southern residents to make it past their first birthdays. That's just the statistic. But J62 has incredibly good genetics because her mother, J41 Eclipse, has had a very consistent cycle of having calf every 5 years. And in fact, she was the youngest known orca mother at the time when she had her first calf at the age of 10. And what was even more remarkable about that, it was that the birth was actually witnessed by scientists. So her first calf is actually one of the very few orcas that we know the exact birthday for. And time, actually. Now, so far, all of G41 Eclipse's calves are still living. And hopefully, J62 will continue that trend for a long time. I have a soft spot for J62. I think anyone that likes the Southern residents and wants him to improve does, because the Southern residents need more calves surviving to adulthood. J62 is doing well as far as we know, J62 was last spotted um, at the beginning of July, when the Centre for Whale Research did their outer coast survey, where they were able to survey every single known southern resident. So everyone at that point was kind of accounted for, and that honestly come like that brings us to the southern resident portion of Orca Watch, which is very short this month. Um, we'll cover L90 Balena's update at the same time. Uh, the update is that there are no updates because as of me recording this segment, from all the sources that I rely on the 27th of August, we have not actually had a single sighting of a southern resident in the entirety of August.
Liar.
In fact, the last sighting of southern residents was the 16th of July, and that was just J-pop. So, really, more of what I'm going to be like looking at for Orca Watch is a little bit of bigs, but mostly the northern residents. So we have the bigs orcas, and the bigs orcas have been super active, as they always are during the summer nowadays. And there's way too many encounters to list. There's way too many families to list. Once again, if there's a family that you're interested in hearing about, post in the comments, and I will add those to a list to keep an eye out for. I will keep an eye out on the family that you want to hear about for you. Probably the most special encounter, in my opinion, because I have like a small list of particular pods I'm looking for. The special encounter that I have picked out was on the 5th of August, where the T36s, that is T36 and T36Bs, T36A1s, and the T99s were all together. And so T36B is the daughter of T36. These are orcas that I saw in person. So that's why they have a place in my heart. T99s, that is another daughter of T36. And the T36A1s are actually the T36A1 is actually the granddaughter of T36, but not part of the T36Bs. The T36As live apart from the T36Bs. But this is a massive family gathering, so it's exciting to hear about. So we've got northern residents. Northern residents, can I just say, this whole month, I've really had fun watching the Orca Lab webcams, which you can find on YouTube. And I've got on this Say Orca app, which is developed by Orca Lab, where I've started trying to identify the acoustics that are being used. So at the start of the month, it was mostly A and iPods that were seen, and they were also seen towards the end of the month as well. The A23s were frequently seen at the start of the month, and the A50s was seen quite frequently at the end of the month. On the 18th of August, all three acoustic clans of the northern residents were seen in the same place. A, G, and R clans. Now, I think the best way to describe the clans, I'm a little bit unsure on them myself, because we've also got APOD and we've got iPod. iPod is in two different acoustic clans. I'm trying to do my research on that to learn a little bit more on that. But think of them as JK and LPod, basically. Now, unfortunately, we have to talk about something quite saddening in this edition of Orca Watch. Now, I actually have a note here. Like, I'm not even going to mention the birth and death section if it's empty. I've got a note here that says skip if empty. Unfortunately, it is not empty this month. So I-76, who was an iconic and popular 28-year-old male orca from the I-4s of the Northern Residents, unfortunately passed away on August the 17th. Now, I've written a whole long thing here, which it's about how the community and particularly scientists feel like when there's a death. So it is a somber day when someone who is interested in orcas, like myself, learns of the passing of any orca, regardless of who they are. It's even worse when it's a young orca that goes ahead of the time, which 28 is very young for a male orca to pass away. Usually, when we enthusiasts and the researchers that study them learn the death of an orca, it precludes with the status of missing. And when you see an orca labeled as missing, you kind of know that they passed away, but it doesn't have finality because it's there's almost never a body. We can't confirm, and they just kind of slip away, just like that. And because of this, we cannot actually feel the fullness of the emotions of the loss because we did not actually witness this event. Um, Last year, when Noah adopted Orca Balena from the Southern Residents, had her very first known calf, L128. Everyone was overjoyed to see it, but that turned quickly to heartbreak when one of the Centre for Whale researchers reports of the calf not doing well surfaced, and just reading it was kind of heartbreaking because you knew that that little calf was not going to survive. Just the way it was being described. Um, they in their report they mentioned it as emotionally draining. And a few days after that, L128 was presumed was declared missing and presumed deceased. Now, this is potentially even worse in this case with I-76. Because this was witnessed by renowned orca researcher Jared Towers and Orca Lab's own Helena Siemens. And it's almost unheard of for the passing of an orca to be witnessed in person. But these two people were present on the 17th of August. And in fact, Jared Towers had been actually going to search for I-76 because he was not doing well the day before. There was really no indication that it was going to be seen again with like whilst being so ill as well. So I-76 was in poor health the day before, looking very thin. And on the 17th, Helena and Jared arrived on scene when I-76 was not doing well for the second day in a row. I will include two articles, each from the point of view of each of these two researchers, into the pinned comments on YouTube. On this particular day, several dolphins were surrounding I-76, as his 22-year-old sister, 3-year-old nephew, and 44-year-old mother, I-4, came over. And Towers was quoted as to saying that he had never seen a northern resident orca move as fast as I-4 did, and it was very clear that she was upset. Um, his family were stationary with him, surrounded by the dolphins, and there was a moment where he took a breath and submerged, and he never surfaced. He never surfaced again. So we are gonna, me and Gio are gonna discuss the emotional impacts within orcas, because this is a very big sign of uh, how emotionally deep orcas are. Like they have way more, they have way more emotional capacity than people do. Uh, I do want to take a moment though to think about the researchers witnessing this event, because this is an individual orca that they have studied for a large portion of their own lives. When you work or study, when you work with or study an animal so long, you do get attached to them, and you get to know them, and like you basically like you build up a relationship with them. Um, and while I don't personally have experience of this myself, I think if I was in that position, it would be akin to potentially even losing a family member. If I was one of those researchers. Now, I don't know if that's how they feel. I'd imagine somewhere close. Um, I do want to take a moment to think about them. So the family of I-76 stayed for a while before they started to call, and then they left. Now, in the following few days after that, I was watching the Orca Lab webcams, and some of the people that are chatting on there had been mentioning how it seems like some of the pods were logging more than usual. And that's to say, staying at the surface. They usually do this when they're resting, so sleeping. Uh, one one person suggested, are they logging or could they be mourning? So I think this is where I'm gonna hand back over to the live broadcast, as opposed to the pre-recorded, and we're gonna have a bit of a discussion on this topic. Okay, thank you, Cravone. Uh, I I could have said back to the studio.
Back to the studio next time.
Yeah, by the way, this isn't pre-recorded now. So, okay, so what do you think of that last segment, Gio? Because I mean, I said we'll discuss. I don't actually have anything to really say about this, because I think it speaks for itself. The fact that this is the fastest that a researcher has that spends like his whole life with these orcas has never seen one of them travel as fastly as this male's mother traveled on that day.
Hmm. And I wonder too then if they can go back and look at acoustic recordings, if they might pick up a call that's significant.
They they did actually pick up acoustics. So when I can't remember exactly what they picked up before, but when he did actually pass away, they were silent for a very long time. Like
Hmm.
they were just still there. They were completely silent, which is almost unheard of for, because even big orcas will make noise every so often.
Hmm.
And then after a while, they started calling, and that's when they left. Um, the very next day, it was when all three acoustic clans of the northern residents were spotted in the same area, and that was an area very close to where he passed away.
Mhm.
So when you ask, do orcas have funerals? I think they do. But not funerals like we have. Like we like we'll we'll crowd around. We'll go to like a service, then we'll crowd around a grave, and but I think orcas just get together, they socialize, and I think they are just very social in that moment. Um, like I think they just gather. I think that's more like what it is. And this actually reminds me of a story that I heard following the passing of Dr. Michael Bigg, who you may have heard of him.
Maybe once or twice.
There's an entire ecotype of orca that are named after him. The big orcas used to be called the transient orcas. They're now called big orcas after
Mhm.
Dr. Michael Bigg.
He also
Um,
has a Star Wars character named after him. I'm kidding, I'm
maybe not.
kidding.
Maybe not.
I'm kidding.
Maybe
That's
not.
that's for our that's for our nerds in the crowd.
Uh, my God, is that going to be this? Is that the start of the podcast?
It might be.
Oh, I think it is.
Hi, welcome to Whale Talk.
Well,
Yeah, this is
welcome
what
on
we
in.
do.
Okay, enjoy the intro.
We're nerds. Deal with it.
Uh, there is actually an orca named Mike,
I love
who
it.
is J26, and J26 was the next orca that was born after Michael Big passed away. Now,
Mhm. I like that. Did you see my
the
suggestion for J62's name?
I did not actually.
Oh, Polyrath.
Polyrath.
Yeah, because it's Pokemon number 62. Polyrath.
Oh gosh. I mean, there will be a naming contest hopefully at some point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, we'll have to make a Whale Talk submission.
so it's so her family are like all like eclipse. Um, wow, I almost swore there. Which I said I'll never do on this podcast. Um, I I've forgotten what her other offspring are called, but they're all space like names. So I would
Mhm.
have suggested Celeste.
That's a nice name.
Um, so okay, back on to the story of Michael Bigg. He did so much stuff uh, for orca um, for orca research and conservation. Um, when he died in the 90s, I think it was the day after, was the first time that year where all three southern resident pods were spotted in the same place. Every single southern resident orca was spotted that day.
Mhm.
Um, and they all gathered in one place. And it was like they were honoring his memory. Now,
Mhm.
how they would know that he had passed away, there's some things that I don't believe can always be explained.
Yeah.
Um, but that one that is way too much of a coincidence.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, it's and it I feel like it only takes a couple of believable assumptions, to reach that conclusion. Now,
yeah,
like, is that scientifically viable? No, but it is at least reasonable enough to investigate further.
they the Southern Residents did the same thing when Tokite died as well.
Mhm.
And how would they know that? And so I do wonder how the Northern Residents will act when, because I don't know if you know, there is actually a northern resident who is in captivity still, who could be released. Since, I mean, heck, like I see her brother on the webcam like quite often. Like
Hmm.
people know who her family is. Um, when one day she goes, because she's quite old now. I do wonder how the northern residents will react.
Hmm.
Whether they'll react in the same way. Um, but yeah, I there is no stronger bond in nature than a mother orca and her son,
Hmm.
in my opinion. Um, okay, so I think we have to answer a question here. Uh, what does happen when a whale, not just an orca, actually particularly more like a baleen whale, what
Hmm.
happens when a whale dies, Gio? By the way, we're going to educate you here, and
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, Gio's going
Yeah.
to
We get to,
explain that.
yeah, we get to segue very nicely into our educate me topic here of whale falls. And now whale falls, we're talking more specifically about when a whale falls, or sorry, a whale dies and falls to the ocean floor, typically in depths greater than 1,000 meters. So this is where we're talking about getting into the depths where light is not penetrating. We're getting into full darkness. We don't have plants as we know it. Chlorophyll ain't gonna work because we're not getting enough light down there. Um, and then on top of that is also there's oftentimes few resources in these deep oceans. They're much like deserts, and so these kind of falls of large biomasses and whales are more specifically what we'll talk about here. But there's also examples of like large biomasses of kelp falling to the ocean floor, or even shipwrecks, especially wooden shipwrecks that have been able to do a lot of the same kind of things where of that they basically produce this massive windfall of resources for all of these organisms that are at a depth where they cannot create energy from light because there is no light down there. Um, so in the initial period of when a whale carcass reaches the bottom, you have your larger, more mobile scavengers. Think like your sheep, your sleeper sharks, your hagfish. Animals that would be able to move, between carcass and carcass, or resources and resources, and be able to, make use of whatever they can find, and also a lot of your larger species obviously as well to that. um, so they're the first ones on the scene. They're able to take advantage of all the soft tissues, kind of the obvious thing you would think of, and also the same kind of thing that would happen at a shallower depth as well, that you would have sharks and crabs and whatever else that would swarm over the carcass and take all of the soft tissues. The more interesting parts when we get past that, when we're just left with the bones and little bits of leftover biological material that have contaminated the surrounding sand and area. And so during this phase, that's when you start to get these more opportunistic animals that colonize the skeleton and the bones of the whale. They're able to start breaking down the lipids, which is like all the fats that are in the bones of the whale. There's certain clams and mussels that harbor microbes that are able to survive and feed on the bone, which then in turn feed the clams and mussels with these mats of why am I'm blanking on the word for it, of bacteria mats, is what they call them. It's really interesting, stuff, and that you have this whole biome that ends up being possible because of this whale that on the surface has passed away from whatever uh, you know natural causes or unnatural causes, and fallen to the floor, and basically created this buffet for a large variety different animals to be able to make their life and experience the full life cycle there because of the whale's body. And then further on to that, eventually, once all of the resources have been consumed from the bones, you then are still left with the calcium and everything else that can't be broken down, the minerals, and then it still can serve as structure and shelter for other animals in the future that can take advantage of that. And one of the things that makes whales in particular interesting, especially compared to some like large shark and large ray falls that have been studied, is the amount of lipids that are in the whale's bones. That means that it can take anywhere from 50 to over 100 years for all of the resources in a whale skeleton to have been consumed by the wildlife of the bottom of the ocean.
So, in short, whales do so much for the planet because not only when they're alive do they, I mean, in their waste they will produce a nutrients to
Mhm,
proliferate algae,
mhm.
and so they're instrumental towards the carbon cycle. But even in their death, they are instrumental. Like they provide life even after they pass away.
Yeah, and I didn't want to get too deep into into that topic, but these biomass falls are a part of the biopump of the whole cycle of the ocean, because you think about everything that goes on down there at the bottom of the ocean. That is the base of everything else above it. All of that filters back up, but it also creates a huge sequestration of carbon, because it can still take hundreds or even thousands of years for that carbon to migrate back up from the bottom of the ocean up to the surface.
Yeah.
Uh, One interesting thing I saw, and I didn't go digging into really, you know, find the validity of this, but one estimate suggested that considering historical, data that we have about whale mortality rates and reproduction and all of that, that it's estimated that along heavily congested migration routes, that there could potentially be a active whale fall site every 5 kilometers.
I kind of feel there would have to be for a
Mhm.
lot of these species to like spread to a new like whale fall.
Yeah, because it's just like islands, right? That you have to have enough proximity for them to be able to make the jump from one place to to another. And obviously, like
Yeah.
those mobile predators that we talked about, at the beginning, they probably have a wider selection range, not only in like terms of territory that they can cover, but also kinds of resources that they would be drawn to. But you do have some that are very distinct just to whale carcasses. Like there was one microbe in particular that I was reading about that has been found around these whale fall sites, that the only other places they've been found on the earth, or that bacteria like them have been found, have been in extremely oxygen low environments, or completely, devoid of oxygen environments.
So I okay, so I have a different but kind of slightly connected educate me topic. So I don't have like a specific instance to explain here, but I'm gonna talk a bit more about like food chains and food webs. So, by the way, that was the worst segue ever.
Eh.
Yeah. Um. So okay, so I'm gonna keep this kind of brief. So I just want to explain to our viewers why, like, conservation of certain, like, middle species of an ecosystem, or even like the top species of an ecosystem, is so important. Like, all food chains are in a delicate balance. And I'm going to cover a few terms here, which will hopefully explain what happens to a food chain if these particular species disappear. So, typically, a food web is basically like several food chains all in one. And a food chain is, you've got the grazers that will eat plant matter. Then you've got something that will eat the grazers. Then you have something else that eats the thing that's eating the grazers. Then you have like an apex predator that will eat those. And so to explain, what would happen if one of these species were to go extinct in one of these ecosystems? So we're gonna name it as we're gonna name the food chain as plant grazer, species one, species two, and species three. Is where like species three eats species two eats species one. So let's say we're heavily fishing species two. Now, what is this going to do to the ecosystem? So, without species two, first of all, species three, which eats species two, will have a lot less food, and species three will end up having a way less numbers. Now, because there's less species two, species one isn't getting predated upon, so their population will balloon, and because there's so many of them, there'll need to be more grazers. So they'll be eating more grazers than is natural, and with the grazers going, then there's more plant material. So you're basically losing every odd species in the ecosystem, and eventually, species one will have nothing to eat because they've eaten everything else, so they'll die out. And species two who is still being overfished, probably won't recover, and then species three will also not recover. And at that point, you've basically got a ecosystem that's got nothing left in it except for plant material. And the plant material may even suffer because you need grazers to spread seeds. Uh, Now, I am talking also like about terrestrial food chains as well.
Yeah, and I think like as you talk about this, probably the best known example I can think about is the gray wolf in Yellowstone National Park, and that's a very well studied one because gray wolves were hunted hunted to extinction. Well, not shouldn't say to extinction, but they were the whole population in Yellowstone was hunted out, and that led to all sorts of imbalances in the ecology. So they reintroduced gray wolves, and there have been some fluctuations and some back and forth over time. But the natural levels of really all of the species in Yellowstone Park have started to recover to where they should be.
So there, okay, so that actually brings me on to my second term more so than the first term. So that will make the wolves what is called an umbrella species. Now, orcas are also an umbrella species. That's why a World Orca Day exists. Um, so an umbrella species is a species of apex predator in a food web where their environmental conditions are paramount to the rest of the ecosystem surviving. Where you can conserve the ecosystem by focusing your conservation efforts on the apex predator, and that will then have a trickle down effect on on everything else in the ecosystem.
Yep.
And it's important to keep apex predators like healthy as well, because they are population control. Every food chain needs population control. Otherwise, another species will get too big, and then there will not be enough stuff for it to eat.
hmm
Um,
And
so
and especially when you have situations too where you get like a prey species starts to run out of control, you start to get some selection. You could get some selection in a predator species for like say larger litter sizes, or more frequent reproduction even. Um, that could balance it, but even then that's that's just you're just playing accordion with everything, because even like going back to Yellowstone and with the wolves, like okay, so the grazers went out of control, so there was very little new growth of like oak trees and other long growing trees because they grazed too much. So over time that means less cover, which then means that, and it's all cascading. And I know I'm veering off way into left field here, but it's such a crazy thing to like try and process how just the smallest change, even just a reduction in population of a predator species by half, how catastrophic that could be, to a whole system.
so Geo, did you know that the population of southern resident orcas and Biggs orcas are in complete opposite bands?
hmm
So let me explain how this works, and this will touch upon what a keystone species is. So the keystone species in that food web is salmon. What, by the way, a food web is basically several food chains, like all intermixing. Um, so you've got so it all revolves around two species of fish, a species of seal, and then the two ecotypes of orcas. So salmon is considered the keystone species. So you've got a smaller type of fish called hake, and so hake will eat everything in like the lower part of the food web, and the salmon will eat the hake. But you also have another species that eats the hake, that being the harbor seals.
I thought
When
you
you
were gonna say humans.
so when you have less when you have less salmon, you've got more hake because there's less predators, but also because there's more hake, the other predators will then balloon in size, like the harbor seal. The harbor seal population in the Pacific Northwest is is considered perfect, like as a population size. Now you've got the big orcas that will be eating those harbor seals. So the big orcas, their population size is doing fantastically. But on the flip side, because salmon are not doing well, and salmon are the preferred food of the resident orcas, the resident orcas are now no longer doing well. So if you have more salmon, the resident orcas will have more to eat, and they'll do better. But it means that there'll be less food for the seals, so there might actually be a decline in seal population, and that might mean that there's a decline in big orcas. So it's kind of interesting to think that way, where what affects the southern residents also oppositely affects the big orcas.
Yeah, you have a bit of an inverse relationship there.
Yeah. Um, I I'm not going to cover invasive species today, because that is quite a big topic for probably another day.
As long as we just acknowledge that we don't like lionfish.
No one likes lionfish.
Good.
I knew, like we're not doing invasive species. I knew like you just had to mention lionfish because if you didn't, I would have. I was about to cough lionfish. Oh, no one likes lionfish. That's like a marine biologist.
I mean, apparently they are good eating, though. So we do need to spread that word around. They are good eating. It is a
Can
nice,
we spread that
light,
to?
white, flaky fillet. They are really good eating.
Can we? I was going to say, can we spread that to their predators? But that's the problem.
I know this.
They don't.
Well, and it's
They're too good.
well,
They're too good
yeah,
at what they are.
yeah. Well, and to my anecdotal knowledge, the only predators that have really been seen to go after lionfish around here have been Goliath groupers. And we need more Goliath groupers to decide that lionfish are the preferred food, because also we don't like Goliath grouper very much either.
Oh wow! Oh, so you're
Also,
hoping
well,
they'll
that's
take each other out?
no, it's a little bit less that, but like, well, so Goliath grouper are an endangered species. They are a grouper that grows to be about the size of a VW bus. I mean, I'm kidding. It's not quite that big, but I don't remember what it is in kilograms, but I can do a quick look up while I talk. But like they generally weigh about, or the big ones can weigh around 600 pounds, which is about 275 kilograms. They're like, I think 2 meters length. Like, they're really, really big fish. They also really, really, really like to steal your fish when you're fishing.
I was gonna say, like, good luck to anglers.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Like, yeah, you gotta have a
I've
good
hooked in.
arm for that.
Yeah, and there are some. Well, actually, Florida recently introduced a tag system to be able to take ones of a very specific middling size to try and cull some of them, because they can be problematic, and they're also problematic to like spear fishermen, because you don't want to go spearing a fish and then you're holding it and have a Goliath come up and try and eat it. That's a good way to not be able to get up to the surface. So they are problematic from to spear fishermen as well. But there's a lot of charter captains around that specifically sell Goliath grouper catching trips, and they don't even have to go offshore. They can do it around the bridges, but they have to have like special rigs for them where they'll use these, like, to put it into context. Normally what I fish for, or for fish with offshore, is a 6-foot rod that's a medium heavy rod. It's pretty thick around, got a pretty big body to it. The rods that they use might as well be steel rods that are like an inch around. Like, they basically, because they need that much force and leverage because of how absolutely massive these fish are. But they steal your fish, and I don't like them.
So, talk about stealing your food. Um,
Dolphins do it as well. Fishermen often don't like dolphins because they do the same thing. They'll steal your fish off your line. And
see,
then laugh at you, because that's what dolphins do. They laugh at you.
here's the thing. I once was on a boat and I had like this really nice risotto. You know what a
Hmm.
risotto is, right?
Yep. Uh-huh.
And like on this particular day, there was actually this whale that came out of the water and just gobbled up my risotto. Like, damn, rice whales. That was that was the most forced segue. By the way, not true story. But hang on, does that mean that we get to talk about rice whales now?
Sure, we can talk about rice whales.
Okay, they are a lesser known species for this month. Um, so a lot of the information presented here can be found on the Whale and Dolphin Conservation website. Link will be in the comments. We will probably talk about WDC a little bit later on as well, because we're going to talk about what's going to be happening a little bit soon, next month. So, okay, so I'll read off what I've got here until we get to interesting information. Well, I'm gonna let you pop off.
Hmm. Yeah, because
This is
this
your
is
local species.
yeah, this is one of my local species. So yeah,
Like these
I'm
are the
excited.
whales that like you see down the pub,
I wish I could, but
and you
it'd
have a
be
drink with them.
yeah,
Mm.
I could. Or one of the I'm gonna go sorry, random sidetrack. Did you know that there is a resident population of sperm whales? Wait, is it sperm whales or humpback whales? Now I can't remember which. In the Gulf of Mexico?
I was unaware of that actually.
Yeah, and like I want to look more into that because I was looking at, like okay, what whales could I reasonably see if I was out on a fishing trip? Because obviously I see, bottlenose dolphins all of the time. They're ubiquitous around here, but I was like, I wanted to see what else is out there. And apparently we got some big whales hanging out there. So,
Oh yeah, you've got like really big whales. They're called rice
hmm,
whales.
yep.
So rice whales are rorquals. Rorquals are basically great whales with baleen plates. They're in the same kind of group as blue whales and fin whales, and they were once thought to be bride's whales. Their range is quite small. They are in the Gulf of Mexico all the time, as in they are non-migratory, and they basically they only stay in the same place.
And a fairly specific depth range as well.
Oh yeah, they're actually not that deep diving for large whales.
Yeah,
Um,
if I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but if I remember right, they typically are in depths of 500 to 1500 meters.
I've got different information here.
I may just be misremembering. I've been reading a lot this week, Cravone.
So I've got here that they dive up to around 270 meters.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean their depth. I meant the depth of the water that they live in.
Okay. So like the depth of the seafloor.
Yeah, because it's so because I was looking at the range maps since I was really interested. Like I said, hey, could I see a rice as well? And the truth for me is probably not. I'm on like the very southern end of their current range, though I would have to on a fast boat. I'd have to drive about 3-4 hours out to get into the right depth. But according to historical reports, the Rice's whale used to be um, basically their range used to be a crescent going all the way around the Gulf of Mexico along the band where the continental shelf is that depth. Because one of the interesting things about the Gulf of Mexico is there's large sections of it that are very much like a plateau, but then once you get to the edge of it, it just drops way off. And so it's right along where that edge is where the drop off is. Like that's where their like maximum range is. If they get to that drop off, they're not going any further out than that.
Yeah. So they don't actually have to dive quite deep for their prey because so their prey is not too well known, but it's mostly thought to be plankton, krill, and small crustaceans.
And of course plenty of shrimp activity in the northern
Oh
Gulf
yeah,
where they are.
oh yeah, like that's a part of the world that's quite known for shrimping,
Yeah.
if
And
I'm
I've
not
I
mistaken.
have I have done some fishing up near where their range is, and like there's it's very good fishing grounds. Like there's a lot of tuna, like yellowfin tuna up there. There's red snapper. It's a really healthy fishery up there.
Yeah. So Identifying them is actually not that easy. Um, Other than the fact that you know that they lived there. Um, so not too much is known about them, but they are very streamlined with a flat head that has three ridges. And usually the ridges can be a bit of a giveaway when big whales like this are on the surface. They can be what differentiates one from another. Um, and they have a dorsal fin that is larger than most other great whales. Um, do you want to take away the interesting information?
Yeah.
I'm letting you pop
Um,
off now.
yeah. So the Rice's whale, like you said before, it was once thought to be a subspecies of the Bride's whales, as a localized population to the Gulf of Mexico. It was designated as an endangered species, I believe, in 2014, by the by NOAA, or by the U.S. government, but it wasn't officially classified as its own species until 2021. In 2019, a deceased individual washed up in the Everglades National Park, which is in the southwest coast of Florida. So you kind of have like the Keys that are kind of acting as a little catch basin. So that, with the range for the Rice's whales being far to the north of that, it likely followed the currents south along the coast before washing up there in the Everglades. And then they took the body, buried it, allowed it to decompose, and then they dug it up and sent the skeleton to the Smithsonian, where then it was cataloged and officially described. And there was enough physiological differences to be able to classify the Rice's whale as its own species in 2021, which it had long been suspected to be its own species, but they didn't have that skeleton to be able to do the holotype and officially describe the species, because you have to be able to. Or that's a part of the taxonomical world, is that you need to have that skeleton, or at least enough of a skeleton to be able to do a proper description and describe a species that way.
So,
Um,
from what I read, they're not even that closely related to prize whales. That
mhm.
they're actually quite different physiologically.
Yeah, and I believe they're actually more closely related to blue whales, I think. This is why we have the power of the internet. We can look things up when we're not sure. Sorry, it's Eden's whale, Omura's whale, and then the blue whale I believe, are its closest. Or sorry,
I did read
let
about
me
the
back up.
Omas.
Let me back
Well,
up. Uh, the Rice's whale and the Eden's whale form a clade, along with this, and then in another group, I don't remember what they call it, with the Sei whale and the Bride's whale.
okay.
So it's the Eden's whale that is its closest relative.
Maybe we need to
And the
cover
Eden,
the Eden's well next month.
yeah, and the Eden's whale is also known as a skipjack whale, especially around Japan.
So they're actually the rice whale, I should say. They're
Mhm.
actually one of the most critically endangered species on the planet. Because there are roughly 13 of them left. I believe what I read was 12 males and 18 females. Um, and they were quite heavily hit by the Deep Horizon accident, which was the BP oil rig fire several years ago. And that put them even further on the brink of extinction. And
Yeah.
what oil spills will do to cetacean species will be that they'll sabotage their ability to reproduce, if not kill them outright.
Hmm.
And they
And and
lost.
and they add, and when we go back to our earlier conversation about food webs, it has a cascading effect on so because everything is infected from the bottom up, in the food web. So it's a complete cascade failure of the system when oil spills happen, especially to the level that happened um, with that BP oil spill.
Yeah. So they still actually face quite a few threats. Notably fishing gear, boat strikes because it's a very busy area, pollution, as in chemical pollution and noise pollution.
Yeah.
And you actually mentioned a little bit more on this.
Yeah, so I have a hypothesis to make about um the rice whale's current range. So as I look across that range, and like I said, it's a band along the continental shelf, like all the way around from around Tampa Bay, all the way to the Yucatan Peninsula. That's where their historical range was believed to be. Well, when you look at the entirety of that range, until you get over to Florida, there's been extensive uh, gas and oil exploration and production done along the entirety of that corridor. Now, when you get to Florida, Florida has long had a ban on offshore oil drilling, and that's due to tourism being such a big part of the state's economy. And like it's repeatedly come up of like constitutional amendments, ballot initiatives, basically of to continue banning offshore oil drilling, and it's something that the people of the state of Florida are very passionate about. No matter your political affiliation, that's something that most Floridians agree very strongly on. And so I have this hypothesis that um, that their range has been constricted by that oil and gas production, and that as long as oil and gas production is going on in their historical range, that it seems like it would be unlikely that they would recover that historical range. But that's just a hypothesis.
Well, I'm muting myself. Uh, it's yeah, I think it's certainly possible that that's the case.
And it also plays into just all of the other things that we've talked about of like, especially like noise pollution and all of that, and how all of that affects not only our cetaceans, our whales and our dolphins, all of our mammal friends in the sea, but all of the food sources and everything else. And it's and sometimes that's even double edged because like when you talk about fishing, and especially off of Louisiana, there are so many oil platforms, but the oil platforms are also hotspots for life. Much in the same way that for a whale fall, that even after all of the resources have been exhausted, that just being structure, provides an environment for life to exist, and the oil platforms, you know, do the same as well. You see large amounts of wildlife that congregate around these oil platforms.
Yeah. So, do you have anything more on rice wells?
Um, I don't think so. I think I pretty well covered that. Other than it's my new favorite whale because I didn't know about it until we really
And
started digging in on.
I imagine it being a local whale as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and because in the Gulf of Mexico doesn't really have any other unique whale or dolphin species, to the best of my knowledge. Like we have melon-headed whales. Obviously we have bottlenose dolphins more than we need, to be honest. But it
It,
does make it nice for tourism. Yeah.
here's a Floridian complaining about diversity,
I know, right?
biodiversity.
Look, I'm like I'm
American
let's
Australia
see.
over there.
Yep, I'm like 3 months away from the falling iguana warnings. Okay.
Oh my! Okay, I'm gonna have to ask that another time. Well, that's
Yeah,
a
when we talk about invasive species, we should definitely talk about Florida and in particular South Florida because it's a mess. Oh, it's a mess.
it sounds very much like Australia.
Well, even more so than Australia, because when you get people that treat their back door or their backyard or the canal behind their house or their little retention pond as a, little personal, you know, uh, exotic fish breeding pond, and then there's hurricanes and floods and everything else, it kind of causes a disaster.
Wait, hang on. They do that, and
Oh yeah.
I guess they do treat alligators like dogs.
Yeah, there are so many invasives that got released especially in South Florida, um, that are just all over the canals there, like snakehead from I believe so it's Southeast Asia, somewhere in Southeast Asia, and they're an extremely aggressive. They will eat everything, fish. We have um, we have Mayan cichlids and all sorts of Amazon, fish. I mean, there's even places you can find piranha. Like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But there's all sorts of aquarium fish all over South Florida.
So, I'm gonna talk about our charity spotlight for this month. Now, I actually have two charities I wanna shout out here. By charities, I mean these are like causes that we support here. Um, both on the podcast and through Twitch, particularly on my side. But like we're doing a massive collaborative effort in October. First of all, I do want to mention about the Whale Museum, with whom uh, we do our orca adoption of L90 Balena, and I just want to give them a quick shout out because uh, I got a report 2 hours after episode 2 went live, and then a second report 5 days ago, which is what I'm looking at on my phone at the moment. Um, that the World Museum were present during two entanglement responses for whales. So there were two whales, humpback whales, that have been entangled in fishing lines and been able to be freed. Um, and Whale Museum helps to well, they help with that. And the second charity highlight I want to give is to whale and dolphin conservation, and this is more to let you guys know what's going on in October, because the next podcast will be recorded on the 1st of October, most likely. So
Love that
that's
album. Oh, sorry.
So that's when the start of our big fundraiser will start. In fact, we will be fundraising for WDC during that actual podcast. Um, so what we're doing in October is, in collaboration with Whale and Dolphin Conservation, we will be raising money for the whole month through our Twitch streams, and I will also put a link to the Tiltify link in the description and pin comment of the next episode of the podcast. And the whole goal of that is that the money we raise is going to be put towards efforts to try and bring an end to cetacean captivity. And now we're not saying like we need to free every single whale and dolphin that's currently captive, because you just can't. You can't. Like most of them will die because they've never had experience in the wild. They would not be able to adapt to a wild environment. That being said, sea pens are very much an option for them, and I may cover another story next month regarding that. One that I've kind of been holding off on. But see, next month, October, that is, will be all about raising money for that. And look, the WDC do a fantastic job. Last month, we covered a story where Mexico have unanimously agreed to ban whale and dolphin shows. If more countries can get on that, then maybe we might have a chance of. Particularly, the main focus right now should be to prevent orca captures, prevent dolphin captures, and cetacean breeding in captivity as well. I think that's the main focus for now. But it's also to discourage people from going to these places. The best way to get these companies that only care about money to actually act is by making sure that they make less money. That's the only thing that they will understand. So hopefully in October we will make enough of a difference to help out. Now, we're moving on to a question. This will be the last thing in the podcast. So we actually have a question from Sleepily Sapphic. Now, I do have an answer written out here. Gio, if you want to add to it, go ahead once I've read all this stuff out. So I have prepared a very long response. This is a question from Sleepily Sapphic. The question is, do any species of whale and dolphin do any forms of mimicry? For example, sounds of other species, appearances, etc. So, I think there is no way that we can talk about this without mentioning that this has happened in captive cetaceans, where belugas, one orca in particular, who is currently in France, probably more on her during October. Oh, I will pop off on that. They have been observed mimicking humans, but this is in captivity. This is not in natural environment. So I don't think we can consider this a viable environment to make that basis, except for the entire, like, the only thing that we can take from this is that they have the ability to, but this is not a natural thing. So I actually had a lot of trouble finding any given examples of cetaceans using mimicry in the wild, whether it be another species or like another normal sound in their environment. Zaf is mentioning in chat that they've seen an orca mimic a boat motor. I can't find anything like specifically written about this. Yet I could swear I've heard similar things before. And so I do have my own speculation on this. And I think not a lot of species would anatomically be capable of doing it. Some would, definitely belugas. Belugas have a massively wide vocal range, so could potentially mimic sounds in their environment or sounds from other creatures. But the question is, would it still be would it actually be necessary? I think a more plausible instance could be between two different ecotypes of orcas, and whether bigs would be able to mimic resident orcas, because bigs orca prey is very acoustically like aware, and they can probably tell the difference between a big orca and a resident orca. So I wonder if at any point big orcas would actually be able to mimic a resident orca to trick their prey. Now, they wouldn't be able to make the sounds where the resident orcas will actually understand, but would a seal be able to tell the difference? Um, it's possible they wouldn't, but it's also possible they would. Um,
And would they just put down a difference to, variation between individuals?
it could be. It could because like orca matrilines all develop their own sounds. And there's a lot of acoustic deviation within orcas, even within the same pod. Or like if I were to watch the Orca Lab webcams and listen to the hydrophone, and like I were to listen to the calls that are being made, like there's some people that can just listen to that hydrophone, use the app, and say, "Oh, that's the A23s," or "That's the I4s,"
Hmm.
simply through acoustics,
Yep.
because the acoustics are so different.
Hmm. Yeah, I
And
have. For anyone that's into bird watching, there's an app called Merlin that's made by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and it has a feature to where you can let it record and it will listen and identify bird sounds. And around me, the northern mockingbird is very common, and as its name suggests, it mocks. And it's really interesting to watch Merlin with a mockingbird because there will be times where it will fool Merlin into thinking that it's actually a different bird. Like I have sat there and had it just sit there and just pop up different species after different species. And it's it's really, like it kind of in the that same vein of like I'm thinking about where the little differences, you know, uh, where the little differences would be as well, even in terms of like frequency range that an individual, might use too.
the fact that there's enough deviation might make us look like a predator would be tricked.
Hmm.
As long as it's like similar enough, like a slight deviation could actually work.
Hmm.
Now they
I mean,
have.
I would also be interested to see, though, just in general, if there's been examples of orcas using like sound trickery, not necessarily mimicry, but trickery, like doing stuff like even like like when hunting in pairs, having one that's making a bunch of noise, 50 meters away, while the other one's being quiet so that it draws the attention away from it. Do we see tactics, like that,
I
in orca hunting?
I would honestly be surprised if that isn't the case.
Hmm.
I'd imagine that would be the case, because they do occasionally do this visually as well. Like one big orca will let itself be seen,
Hmm.
whilst like for instance his sister is way closer to the seal than the seal realizes.
Yeah. Or
And
you can have the big mom who doesn't want to go do the work. Kids, go get the seal.
oh, she would only be doing that if she's teaching.
Hmm.
So they the thing is, orcas will also use percussive behavior as well. They'll slap the water with their tail or with their flipper, or they'll breach.
Hmm.
This can spark panic in prey species, and they may even be doing that intentionally sometimes. Is my
And
theory.
I mean, it's another sound that I can think of that if they were to mimic, there's a lot of now I don't know that orcas in particular overlap the range, but drum species of fish are very well known that when they're in distress, they drum. It's literally a dunk, 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 kind of sound that you can hear underwater when they're in distress. And a whale that could figure out how to mimic distress, distress sounds would be a powerful whale indeed.
I don't know if orcas need more tools to to hunt prey.
Mhm. Well,
I
and
think they
besides,
have the
I mean,
full set.
okay, well, besides orcas, maybe someone else could use some help.
Sperm whales. But hang on, sperm whales probably have loud enough clicks that can actually stun prey. Although I mean, not probably not the prey that they're hunting, but still.
Hmm.
So, uh, just an extra side thing about this question is I decided to mention something else in response to this. So this isn't to do with mimicry, but there have actually been instances of orcas, wild orcas, trying to communicate vocally with people above the water. Now, due to how they make noise, this sounds like they're blowing raspberries at us. But this could actually be them attempting to communicate with us.
Which is even better when they come up and blow a raspberry at you after ripping your rudder off.
They, I'm just picturing these orcas have ripped your rudder off. They've surfaced. They're blowing
Hmm.
raspberries at you, and then one just throws a bird in your boat,
Yeah,
like says, "Eat
I would
that."
I would petition to rename that whale Dennis the Menace.
It's funny because these are all topics that actually I've not covered rudder attacks yet, have I? But we've
Yeah, it was a
we've
while
covered
ago.
these a few times. Oh, by the way, last time you mentioned this seal that has a sofa. I mentioned that to the guys in WDC,
Hmm.
and that kind of spawned a bit of a meme. I think
That's
it's
great.
Wally the Wandering Walrus, and we were talking about that for at least 2 or 3 hours,
That's great.
and it's you that brought it up, and I remembered it. I'm like, I want to talk about that.
Yeah, see, and that's that's the warning I have to give to people. Like I go down rabbit holes. I read a lot of random stuff. I retain a lot of random stuff, and I know I get stuff wrong a lot of times, and I apologize for that. I try my best, but I do read. I read a lot, and so like when I was a kid, we would watch Jeopardy trivia game show, and it's a hard show. There's a lot of hard trivia on there. You got to be a really smart person to know a lot of stuff and a wide breadth of stuff to do well on it.
I have to.
And
Sorry.
I'd be like, yeah, I'd be like 8, 10 years old, and we'd be watching as a family, and there'd be a hard question that would come up that stumped the rest of the family, and I'd just call it out. It would just be something I randomly heard or read somewhere, and my mom and my sister would just look over at me and be like, "What? How did you know that?"
I think when you like read something, I've noticed this like since we've started doing the podcast that before I never really enjoyed reading like research papers. I always thought they were like they're too like technically worded. I never really enjoyed properly reading them.
Hmm.
When it's a topic that you're really interested in,
Yep.
oh my god, they're fascinating. Like they're as good as books.
Yeah, like I know with the story I talked about with the sperm whales. and the dolphin. Like, we're gonna put the link in the description or in the comments. And it really is an interesting paper to read. It's only about 6-7 pages long, and it has a bunch of pictures of the dolphin and the sperm whales in the water. Which and the whale or the dolphin, like I think I mentioned that it had a spinal deformity, but it's like this dolphin's like an S. It looks like a snake. It's got a big old, like, the probably the back half of its spine before you get to its tail is there's a double kink in it, or a triple kink, something like that. But it's it's really, really, really cool to see that, and like also read through their hypotheses of what they think. And it's obvious because they didn't publish this until 2 years later, so they obviously like did more research, and like they have a bunch of citations on different things, and they've obviously talked to people, and to form these hypotheses. But they're all, they were all really, really logical, and really, like, even from a layman's standpoint, made a lot of sense in what they were talking about, and their reasoning of why this was happening. And you're right that, like, because I was interested in it, it ended up being a really easy read.
I mean, of course it is published by the University of Plymouth.
Hmm.
That's where I went.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's unfortunately all that you guys have time for, most likely. Um, that's all we have time for, I think, this month. We do have one topic that we will talk about in the future. So what we plan to do at some point in the future um, is we want to have a little bit more standalone content as well. So anything that we actually have to cut from the actual podcast, because we don't have time to cover it, we may actually just put that in like a standalone video at some point in the future. Um, we do have a topic here that um, we'll try and talk about it next month. Um, the goal is to keep these podcasts maximum 2 hours, maybe like an hour and a half. Um, and I can safely say that we have failed miserably at that.
Yes, indeed
But
we have.
okay, so anyone that aside from on Twitch, anyone that's listening to this when we upload it to YouTube or Spotify, do please let us know how are you fine with us just going as long as we want? Are you fine with them being with us just going for like 2.5 hours, or would you prefer to be like 1.5 hours? Because for me, here's the thing: for me, when I listen to a podcast, uh, I, I won't sit and listen to the whole thing in one go. I'll listen to bits here and there when I have time. Like I might listen to like 10 minutes here. I might listen, and then like I might not get another time until next week, and then I might listen to another 10 minutes, etc. How do you guys How do you guys feel about how long it is? Do let us know, because that will influence whether we actually just let go of the leash. Yeah, this episode today could have been 3 hours. Like it could have. There's one story that if I'd included it, I would have popped off. Um, a couple things that you'd have popped off at.
Hmm.
um, yeah. So also, when we finally start doing the extra videos, they will be on YouTube only. They won't be on Spotify. So do follow us on both places if you use Spotify. The videos won't be too long. They'll probably be like 10-15 minutes maximum. But they may possibly be a little bit more scientific, a little bit more like a little bit more wordy. I
Let
want
us
to
nerd
say,
out a little bit.
yeah, we might mention terms like cyanobacteria, um, or haloclines.
Hmm.
Um, Gia, what's a halocline?
I have no idea.
Ha! Wow. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm not. It's not that I'm not explaining because I don't know what it is. It's that I'm not explaining it because I can't remember which one it is. It's
Oh,
one or
good.
two.
I know what a thermocline is.
Yeah, I think it's. I think a halocline is salt related.
Oh,
I
salinity.
think.
Yeah,
I think.
that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yep, because
Right.
that affects acoustics.
Oh yeah. That's. I should know because I freaking did the. I did a. I did a university thesis where I definitely mentioned halocline more than once.
Yeah, yeah. Haloclines is salinity. Haloclines is salinity.
Okay. I mentioned I mentioned a different term as well when I did my thesis on big bellied seahorses that live in Australia. Um, so yeah. Oh yeah, because there's one that's pH as well. Um,
Yeah, that would make sense.
I can't remember what the term is. I'll look it up after. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening. Thank you, Jufis, for joining
Had
this week.
had a great time.
And yeah, so the next one will be next month, obviously. But that will be recorded on the 1st of October next month, most likely. We will be fundraising already by that point, so um, we will be omitting a regular segment uh, just so that we can focus on the fundraising. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening and watching, and we'll see you next month.